CRX episode number 2. In this episode, I'm going to go over the preparation for repainting the engine bay. I'm going to show you some body parts that I've already picked up for the car, and I'm going to give you the vision that I have for this vehicle. Sort of my goal for the overall look of the car, the feel for the car, and what I'm going to use the car for. But let's start with this. I'm sure you've noticed it no longer has any front end on it. Well, I want to keep this a pretty simple project, pretty low budget. I don't want to go too crazy on it. I just could not put the engine back in with the engine bay looking the way that it was. It has never been repainted, so there's scratches and dents and dings all over the place, and there's just way too much going on that's going to take away aesthetically from the clean engine setup that I want to have in here. And like I mentioned in the first video, the front fenders are going to get replaced. The headlights were trash anyway, so the best thing to do was rip it all apart and repaint the engine bay. Repainting the engine bay can kind of be a slippery slope because if you do want to have a very clean appearance to your engine bay, it's very easy to start looking at all of the extra holes and brackets and start thinking about shaving things and removing unnecessary stuff, doing wire tucks, hiding brake lines, all of that sort of thing. While I really do like the way that all of that stuff looks, I am going to take a little bit of a simpler approach on this engine bay. To start, I'm not going to shave anything. I'm not going to remove any holes. I'm not going to go crazy at all with body work. All I'm going to do is a little bit of prep on the surfaces that are there, and I'm going to paint it the way that it is. I'm not going to modify anything. However, because I do like a very clean looking engine bay, I am going to do some of that other stuff that I was talking about, such as the battery, which is already relocated to the back on this car. I'm going to relocate the fuse box. I'm going to wire tuck the engine bay wiring harness for the headlights. And I'll probably do some other things to kind of hide different accessories in the engine bay, sort of like the fuel filter or the evap canister, so that I can keep all of those, but they're in a space that isn't visually disruptive when you're looking at the engine bay. Now, my end goal is to have a completely custom turbo setup on the B16A engine, but for right now, I'm just going to respray the engine bay, do my best to clean up the appearance of everything, and put the engine back in naturally aspirated. There's two reasons for that. One, this is my daily driver, which now I don't really have a daily driver because obvious. And two, I really want to focus on the outside of this car before I start focusing more on the performance. So repainting the bay and getting the engine back in and running as quickly as possible is going to help me move my efforts back to working on the outside cosmetic of the car, because that's kind of what I'm most excited about. Obviously, I'm excited about the turbo kit and all of that stuff. But what I want to do is I want to build an exterior of a CRX that fits sort of a vision that I've had for a really long time. But before I talk about that, let me show you sort of what I've done with the engine bay already. The first step to repainting any engine bay is basically remove everything that's not going to be painted. That includes all of the wiring, the accessories, anything that's bolted down onto a painted surface. It also includes removing all of the grime and dirt and grease and debris that's built up over the years. While I've seen worse, this engine bay was pretty gross. There was a lot of grime on all of the painted surfaces, and of course what I had to do was remove everything, plug the holes in the firewall, and I gave it a really good pressure wash. A pressure washer is a great way to clean the engine bay surface before you start sanding and prepping for paint. There's a couple of different reasons. You could use engine degreasers and other types of chemicals for stripping all of that grime and grease off of the engine bay, but unfortunately sometimes those chemicals can sort of bury themselves into the painted surfaces, and then when you go back to primer and paint later, they can sort of come back to bite you. So I like to just use a very simple dish soap, like a Dawn spray wash, let that soak in a little bit, and then go back with a pressure washer and just blast it all off. Now that all the grime and dirt is off of the engine bay, all I really have to do before we paint it is sort of scuff all of the surfaces. If there's any heavy, deep scratches, I'm going to go in with some sandpaper and work those down so that they're nice and smooth. And then we can go straight to primer and paint from that point. I'm not going to really go crazy. So I've already ordered the paint for this engine bay, and it should be here in the next couple of days. So hopefully by the next CRX episode, I'll actually just be covering the entire engine bay painting process in episode number 3. But in the meantime, I've been pretty busy the last couple of weeks gathering parts for this car. Let me show you some of the stuff that I've got. Since the rear hatch was damaged, I knew I was going to have to find a hatch. I wanted to find a driver door. I wanted to find some fenders. Now, there was a guy locally that was parting out a 90 HF CRX, so not quite identical to my car, but I'm probably going to be able to use most of these parts. So he had a nice clean hatch The only difference on this is that this has a rear wiper. Mine doesn't, so I'll probably just delete the rear wiper when I do the install. I was able to pick up both doors off of that car for basically nothing. It was very cheap. Now I know that the 90-91 doors are different than 88-89 doors. What I'm going to try to do, if I can't actually find an 88-89 door, is find a way to remove all the 90-91 stuff off of this door and use it on my car. Now everybody that's watching this video and knows anything about CRXs knows that there's only a couple of different ways that you can go about the styling on the outside of the car. One, you can leave it completely stock. Two, you can go for a Japanese or European conversion look, like an SIR front or a ZC conversion on the front of the car. You can go for that, but with maybe like an aftermarket lip kit, something like that to just sort of enhance the OEM styling a little bit. Or you can go with like a body kit. Now in the 90s and early 2000s, there was a huge array of different styles of body kits for these cars. Most of them were not really my taste. Obviously, the number one go-to for an OEM plus look on these cars is like the Mugen Pro 1 or Pro 2 CRX kit. Now, I don't have Pro 1 or Pro 2 type of money to throw into this project, so that wasn't really an option. Obviously, the next best bet is a Wings West Aero kit, which was a replica of the Mugen Pro 1 kit. I got lucky browsing on Marketplace, and I found a guy that was selling a complete, authentic Wings West CRX body kit. This kit does a decent job of replicating the Pro 1 kit on the CRX. The rear bumper and the side skirts and the door caps are pretty close, and you can modify the rear bumper to look closer to the real Mugen bumper pretty easily. The biggest problem is going to be the front bumper. I don't like the way that the Wings West front bumper looks pretty much at all. So I don't think I'm going to use this front bumper, and I haven't quite nailed exactly what I am going to use, but it's probably going to be styled real similar to just the Mugen kit that most of you guys are familiar with. But what I am going to do that's going to make this a little bit more unique is that I'm going to build some steel fender flares that mold into the body of the car to widen the stance of the car while retaining a pretty OEM look on those fenders. And if you followed any of my other builds so far, you know that I'm a big fan of three-piece wheels that fit aggressively, have a bit of a tire stretch, and the car's got to be low. So all of that is going to be incorporated into this car as well. As far as the wheel style goes, I haven't locked that in just yet. There's the obvious choices of the 90s Japanese three-piece wheels that can be re-barreled to be more aggressive, but I think that's not really what I'm going to go for on this. What I kind of want to do is something a little bit more unique. I think what I'm actually going to do is come up with my own unique wheel design for these and make my own set of wheels again like I did on my 8.6. But this time, instead of combining some common Corolla-style wheels, I want to dive into the nostalgic Honda 90s era wheels and put my own touch into a design that kind of looks like it's from that era, but is definitely not, and is definitely unique. So maybe down in the comments, just throw some cool wheels that you like from the 90s. I'm going to do some research on all of that stuff, and I'm going to take some of those ideas and start working on a design for this car. In the meantime, I'm going to continue to search for a front bumper that I'm going to be able to use. I'm probably going to keep the original hood. I'm going to switch out the headlights for the glass dual light headlights to maybe a plastic or a glass ZC single bulb headlight. So I'm going to be on the search for a set of those headlights as well. I'm going to try to penny pinch for the next week. So hopefully I can buy a Hosport engine mount kit to remount the engine in the car, because I am not happy with the eBay-ish engine mount kit that this car originally had. So next episode, what I'll be doing is I'll be going through the entire painting process of the engine bay and hopefully getting the engine mounted back in the car so that we can, in episode 4, get the car running again and start working on the outside. But again, let me know down in the comments some ideas you have for a front bumper, and especially different wheel designs that I should be looking into to sort of incorporate my own style into a classic Japanese 90s Honda wheel. With that said, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys on the next episode.